Okay. I don't. I know this stream is gonna be kind of out of nowhere, but I'm making this because I'm kind of mad about something. So, um, I need to work on my commissions, but I'm gonna I'm gonna wait until like at least one person joins. So I guess I should really put a trigger warning before anything if anyone joins, but yeah. Um we'll see what happens, I guess. I don't know if anyone's going to be awake at this time, but um let me refresh the chat. I don't expect anyone being here right away. I also have a drawing up, so you guys get to see that drawing while I work and talk. So, and I'll try to make sure to check the stream often. Right now, I'm just going to be doing line work. Here's like the full sketch right now if you want to see it. Um, and the stream is not going to be a very long stream. I'll make sure to reiterate all of this when people actually join. So, let's see. Okay. So, I don't know if anyone's gonna join. Um, I'll have to download the video anyways. These videos that I don't I hope they're not copyrighted. That's the problem that I think I'll have. Um oh, I can't even download this one. Never mind. So I guess I just I'm cooked. I whatever. Um I'm trying to figure out how to play this. Okay, so there's I'm really struggling with coming up with any words, but it's probably because nobody's even watching at the moment. But I mean, I just started, so we're gonna wait a few minutes. And I'm going to draw until some folks join. And then I'll talk about the video. I'm going to be talking about adoption, so and pretty much gonna I might just pop off or something, so I'll try to be self-contained here. I'm also going to be very quiet with my voice here, so I'm going to be kind of monotone. Um but yeah, this isn't going to be a long stream. It's just going to be something that's like really short because I saw something on Instagram and it infuriated me so much that I feel like I have to talk about it. But so the other day, I guess I'll start with the timeline here. The stream's gonna be archived, so if you miss the stream, you still get to watch it and you get to hear my rambling. And for I guess a quick trigger warning here, I'm going to be talking about things like um, abortion, infanticide, and adoption. It's all mostly adoptee issues because those are the videos that have been popping up on my Instagram, which I'm really glad. I'm seeing a lot more like adoptee advocates and things on my feed. That is honestly like the best thing ever. But unfortunately, like with the topic, there's a lot of very um dark topics and just a lot to handle. Um I know YouTube has been absolutely obliterating channels. Maybe it's TikTok. I don't know so much YouTube wise. Um I'm not monetized. I don't really care. My channel is probably never going to be monetized, so it doesn't really matter. But I know a lot of people have censored how they handle topics. I won't be censoring any of the words that is going to be for this topic here. So, oh, I didn't mean to do that. Oops. So I guess I'll start off with the video that I saw. It was like a couple of days ago, and it was a video that's saying like things that are banned in China, and one of them is I have to go back to the video to refer to it really quick. Okay, what's legal in America and not in China? Okay, so it's actually, the video is about, oh, hello, Buttercubic. I've been waiting for you. I'm talking about, adoptee stuff right now. So and it can be very triggering, so I just want to give you that warning before I jump in. I'm talking about a video that's, relating to the one-child policy in China, and the trigger warnings I mentioned earlier were things like infanticide and abortion and things like that. So, and it can be very, very triggering. But if you're chill, you can hang on. I won't be doing a video call tonight. I just wanted to make this stream just because I saw videos, like adoptee videos that popped up, and I feel like I had to talk about them, but I would rather talk about them than comment under a video or under somebody else's video and talk about it myself on my own channel or platforms. And I might as well talk about it while I'm drawing too, so you guys get to watch me draw. Anyways, so the video here is by it's by a creator that does a lot of like how to speak Chinese, how to say this in Chinese kind of, or Chinese teacher kind of like vibes, I'd say, from this Instagrammer. And she talks about things that are legal in America but not in China. And one of the things is, the video in question here is about oh, hello, Zydal Legends, welcome to the stream. One of the things that she talks about, is that it's actually illegal in China to know the gender of the baby before the baby is born. And the reason why is because of the one-child policy law, and how devastating, and it's no longer in China anymore, because they changed it to like the 2-child, the 3-child. They're just trying to get people to have more kids, because they have a really poor gender disparity, like statistically, as well as population-wise. They just have a more growing, aging population compared to having enough younger folks and generations to come. So it's a little bit of a crisis, and the reason why they banned knowing the gender before birth. And the video talks about during the one-child policy, and how women would just abandon if they couldn't have an abortion, they would abandon their babies in these places and stuff. Like, one of the places in the video here is like hold on, Yeah. So there's yeah. I'm looking at the video right now. There is literally a photo of an abandoned baby tower. It is as bad as it says. It sounds. It's literally a tower where women would go up and they would leave their babies inside to slowly die. That is the most awful thing. Oh my goodness. Yeah, so the video just it goes over a lot of really just so it's just so sad. It's very sad. It's saddening. And okay, so how does this tie in with adoption though? It doesn't, but um it ties in, but with the one child policy there are tie-ins with adoption too, because people think they're like, oh, um okay, there's multiple sides. This is like a very it's a multi-layered issue, because it's like there's the infanticide of baby girls, and then there's also the forced separation slash forced abandonment of mothers putting their baby girls up for adoption too. So there's like multiple angles to this. So that's why adoption actually does matter when it comes to the case of the one child policy. And I was this is like the one time I ever comment on videos, and it was to put my own perspective, because the video just talks about like the one child policy and how devastating it was, especially for young baby girls, and just, and even though they have changed the laws to for people to be able to have more children, the people in China still prefer having boys, and it's still a very big issue. Um, and so when I commented, I was just mentioning, I was more so putting my input as an adoptee and the adoptee side of the the whole thing. um there's a lot of Chinese adoptees who are on forums and who I've talked to. I think we've agreed that we feel like we're literally like that w- it's it's a little bit like surviving a war. You feel like you have that survivor's guilt that you survived and you weren't like still put in the abandoned baby tower. According to this video, it's so horrible. I'm not laughing because it's funny. I'm laughing because it's like so absurd. It's so genuinely like scary. It's almost like terrifying. It really is. But when I commented, I mentioned, I said, for if people think adoption is any better, there's still horror stories behind that, because it is forced separation, it is forced abandonment, from parents and their children. Or, even if they did want them or didn't want them, it's still pretty horrifying. And I know people are, I, and there were some people in the comments who were like, oh, it's, at least like the adopted babies were saved. And I'm like, that the issue isn't the adoption, it's the system. And so there's just so much behind it. But when I was talking about it, I mentioned how there were things like, for international adoption, I put my own perspective and my from research that I've done, and from books and other adoptees who I've talked to, Chinese adoptees, who talk about, that in China during the time, during one child policy, there are things like human trafficking incidents where people would literally steal young girls and like babies from very poor, disparaged, like rural towns and villages, to sell to put up to sell to international adoption agencies. It is very bad. There's actually a book uh that's where I've got the information from. It's like all the detailings and stuff about like what was going on. It's kind of like the dark underbelly of it all. But I also there's a video that summarizes it. That's a lot shorter. With everyone's AI brain rotted, TikTokified heads, I'll send you guys the videos instead because it's probably easier to watch. And it isn't like as, I guess it's just probably easier to take in compared to like reading multiple accounts of the horror stories and stuff. Um but yeah, so in my comment I mentioned that, as well as like the abandonment issues and rejection issues due to the traumatic past of just simply being aware of just all of the stuff that happened. It's a lot. It's a lot to kind of internalize. So and I was just mentioning the problems and things. I wasn't really talking about too much. I did get a reply. The person was very civil about it, so I appreciate it. And I was just saying how I was disheartened and upset about the infanticide of baby girls, and it, it's a blatant. And it's all tied, and once again, guys, isn't this crazy? But it's all tied with misogyny. Who would have guessed? But I mean, I mentioned it because I think it's important to understand that even like the babies who weren't left to die or who were aborted, the adoption on the other hand, which people would probably talk about, that also wasn't great either. And there's a lot of problems with the adoption agencies internationally, but I mean, that's why I talk about it, because I want to strive for betterment of these adoption agencies and for children and stuff. This is only part one of what I'm going to talk about, because there's another video that talks about adoption agencies and processes and stuff that I stumbled upon, and I think it's really important to talk about that too. I think I can download that video, so I'll try and download it and share it on the stream here, so you guys get better context. This first video I can't download it, and I don't want to get like copyrighted or strikes or anything, because the creator doesn't want their stuff on other people's platforms. So I'm trying my best to describe what's going on here. Okay, so continuing on with the person who replied to my comment. So they said, they told me not to feel disheartened, as well as saying that that's not the only narrative, as the horror stories and stuff, and that there were parents who were forcibly giving up their daughters or are under coercion or this or that, and deeply loved their daughters and wanted to keep them, and that there were families who were willing to pay the financial penalty of keeping their daughters. But and then they recommended a book, which is on my list to read anyways, which I think is really funny. But the book is about it's called China's Hidden Children, by Kay Ann Johnson. It's basically a study that interviews parents who had to give up their daughters during the one-child policy. It is something that's on my list to read, and I'm very, very well aware of the amount of like Chinese parents who wanted to keep their baby daughters, but they couldn't. I am very much aware of that, but that still doesn't diminish, like, that shouldn't, there's two things. Like, the horror story shouldn't diminish that the parents wanted to keep their children, nor should parents wanting to keep their children completely overshadow the issues with the horror that was also around the adoptions. So it's all just a very it's and then I reply back saying like it's just very unfortunate, the whole circumstances around the one child policy and stuff. There's actually a comprehensive video that I shared on my Instagram story that goes talks about the history of China and that what kind of leads up to the one child policy, and then they talk about the like the adoption of, and the abortion and just like all the stuff that was happening at the time, but they talk about what led up to this point, which I think the video is very insightful, and I'll have to also send this to the stream. um I'll have to edit my description after I stream, so you guys can check that out. I'll have it all up um after I finish streaming. But then my reply was just, I acknowledged what they said, and I said that I wasn't disagreeing with them, and that I agree with them that there were parents who definitely wanted to keep their children and stuff, and it's very the whole thing is just very sad. But and it's okay for, and it's especially okay for adoptees. Like, I think Chinese adoptees are very valid for every way they feel about the one child policy and just all this stuff that goes around it. And but also, because I feel, for me personally, because I feel so strongly about it, so deeply upset about it, I do want to see change, and I that's why I continue to talk about it on my social media whenever I get the chance, or I'm reminded, because I have that object permanence where I literally forget something exists until it shows up, and I'm like, oh wait, that exists. It's one of my favorite things. But yeah, so that's the yeah, and then they were very respectful. The person in the comments were very respectful. Honestly, adoption, Instagram/Twitter. Actually, Twitter is a little bit more insane. I'm not even gonna touch on adoptee Twitter, because adoptee Twitter is like a dumpster fire half the time, because adoptees are just like, well, your experience is not like my experience, and it's like, no, duh, we are unique human beings, and adoptees are like, there's like a spectrum when it comes to adoptees too, because my adoption story is not going to be the same as, like, for example, my little brother's, who is also adopted. Like, our adoptee stories, like, we may live in the same household, but we do not experience, like, and we may have similar experiences, but we don't have the same experience. Like, every adoptee's experience will be different. So just, it's crazy. And then adoptee Twitter will be like, well, my adoption wasn't human trafficking because I was local well, that's crazy, because you were local adoption. But yeah, so I feel bad for one of my I have a Chinese a Chinese transracial adoptee mutual on Twitter who, like, gets into flame wars and comments and stuff because of adoptee issues. It's something, like I said. Okay, so then I also mentioned how we should be, because of the strong feelings and emotions, we should be advocating for better. We should be striving for better when it comes to the adoption system. Sorry, I'm talking so slowly. It helps me with processing, but you guys already know that. But I appreciate you guys who are sticking around. You especially, Butter Cubic. Thank you, my number one. And then I got, okay, before I stop with this one video and go to the next one, I got another reply under the video, and I haven't, it kind of stumped me because I just don't really know what to reply with. Because I think it was interesting, because I also mentioned how China banned international adoption. And this person comes in and says, I'm an accountant. I don't really care if you're an accountant, but sure, pop off. Good to know your background. And seriously might adopt a Chinese. or other Asian daughter in like 5 years, international adoption is much easier. But to me, Chinese and Asian people are normal. I encounter them every day. That's such a weird. This is such a weird reply. That's why I'm stumped. I don't know what to reply with because I'm just like, oh, yes, of course Asian people are normal people. It's kind of one of those moments where you're just kind of dumbfounded a little bit, like, and now here I'm thinking is like, maybe you shouldn't adopt if you can't like phrase sentences properly. But maybe that's me being mean. I didn't reply back with that, but I am, even though I talk about like adoption in the sense that like there are issues with the adoption system, and then people are like, oh, then what should we do? Should we instead like um okay, I know whenever I talk about adoption, it's such a touchy thing because people think I am not, like, they think I'm anti-adoption because I'm talking about the flaws within the adoption system, whether it's international, local, or and then the foster care system is a whole other thing. It's a separate thing. But often there are ties between the two, so I understand that people like think that they're under the same boat. So, but so continuing on with what I was gonna say, yeah, I don't really know how to reply to that comment. I mean, if I were to pick it apart, I would say like if you're considering adopting, like, I think sometimes I've had people ask me, like, saying I would like to adopt a kid, and I'm considering adopting internationally, or like having, for example, I'm a transracial adoptee. That means my parents who adopted me are of a different race than me. That's actually the actual definition of transracial adoptee. I get really mad whenever people are like, are you like the RTCA, like the race change to another? Bro, that's so stupid. It's so stupid. I get so mad about that. I can't even. And then it's like people try to use RTCA to invalidate trans people when trans people are very valid and RTCA is like not valid. But anyways, I'm not even gonna get into that. I know there's gonna be some people um who are gonna be like, Lou is not woke. Well, whatever. um but yeah, so if you're considering to adopt somebody who isn't of your same ethnicity, race, or not, like such and such, I honestly would say very much do your research. Make sure if you do adopt a child of a different race, you have a friend who is of that same race slash community, as well as you are able to have the resources available if that child is like curious about their own culture and things like that. I think keeping a lot of like cultural aspects and things like that in the child's life is very important, because later down the line, I think for a lot of adoptees, when it comes to like looking at interviews and forums and talking to like other like transracial adoptee friends of mine, there's not every transracial adoptee will have the identity crisis journey, but many of us do. So for every adoptee who transracial adoptee who I've interacted with, we have all had that moment of, I literally do not feel like I belong anywhere. Like, I don't feel like I belong with my own group because I don't know the language, or I don't understand the culture, or I don't feel like I belong with my adoptive parents group. And the adoptive parents don't even have to be white. They can be any other ethnicity, and you can still feel that disconnect. There's a large disconnect for adoptees. And also, almost every adoptee that I've talked to and interacted with, even my therapist is an adoptee. And a big topic that we talk about is rejection and abandonment. We have really big abandonment and rejection issues where it makes it really hard for us to experience those things. Um and it's just it can be a lot. It can be a lot. Um and yeah, so I just think knowing being very well aware of your adopted child's like experiences and feelings and being very open and sensitive to them. I think that's something that you have to be prepared to do. Um and like when you adopt, there's multiple, I think there's multiple ways, because people, the only people, and this can go for biological children, the only people who will consider you your parent is the kid themselves. Like, you can't force that onto a child. um and I think sometimes this is the same with like people who like foster children too. Like foster care, like they try to be the new parent or this or that. Um and it's just like, you you have to make sure you build the bridge for the child. Like, you make sure you build the bridge, and if the child wants to walk across the bridge to be a part, have you a part of their life, and want you a part of their life, then that's great. And if not, that's also fine. So it's just, there's a lot to it. But then I guess the next point of this person's comment is just talking about international adoption is much easier. Unfortunately, there's multiple things actually wrong with this. Just saying, like, systemically wise, there's a lot wrong with it. There's a reason why adopting children of different races are cheaper, and it's just because of racism. I'm not really gonna get into that too much. I'm not really feeling the energy to like, and that's why, like, that puts me off a little bit too. It's just because, like, international is cheaper. All right, buddy. I don't really know what to say. Like, I that makes me disturbed to a degree, and I just knowing that buying a kid of a different race is cheaper, just upsets me to a different degree. And I know, like, there are people who are gonna be like, why are you calling it, why are you saying adoption is just buying a kid? Because that's literally what you do. That is literally what you do. You literally buy a kid. Um, and that's a part of the process. I hate to say. And I mean, like I mentioned, China banned international adoption because of the various reasons, such as like human trafficking and just exploitation. And there's a lot wrong with international adoption when it came to China, Chinese international adoption. Um, and there's also, like, I think, another topic of discussion. I know there's a channel of a transracial black adoptee who talks about which they about adoption and well, that obviously their experience as a black adoptee. I'm trying to remember what it was. But they were talking about how, well, if I remember, I'm having blank out moments because it's late and I'm tired and I just want to I just want to draw instead of talk about this. But I really did want to talk about this earlier. But there's this channel where this person talks about, like, kind of the intricacies of, and also the systemic racism that led to the reason why like black children and just children of color, when it, like, adoptees of color were, cheaper, in quote unquote, when it comes to adoption. um it's that's a little bit loaded. Okay, and yeah, and then the person's like, to me, Chinese and Asian people are normal. I encounter them every day. That's such a weird thing to say. Honestly, all I want to do with my reply is just saying that's kind of a weird thing to say. But they're trying to have the sentiment of, oh, I want to adopt a baby. I want to do this. I notice this a lot whenever I like say that I'm adopted, and people are like, oh, I want to adopt a kid. All right, so I want you to know there's like a lot, like, but it's not that I don't want people to adopt kids either. I'm a huge advocate for it, but I really wish people would know what they're getting into, because it's like people think they can just adopt a kid like they can, adopt a dog or something, and it's kind of frustrating to me because people don't treat children like children. And I think that's where my problem comes in a lot of times. It's just like people just don't treat kids like, they're freaking kids. So yeah. Anyways, that's that tangent. We're gonna go to the next video here. I don't think I'm able to download it, so I'll have to like. No, I'm not able to download it. Okay, so the video, it's a stitch. So the first part of it is the original video says gay people shouldn't adopt kids, and then the person replies, okay, tell straight people to stop abandoning them. Okay, and then the stitch here is from an adoptee. I can't tell what flag that is.
I'm going to try to do it without starting a civil war in the comment section. First of all, I don't think adoption agencies discriminate hard enough. Now, I'm not talking about sexual orientation or race or marital status. I think adoption agencies should discriminate, though. If there are millions of people waiting in line for each adoptable infant, I mean, literally, for every infant that becomes available for adoption, there are on average 45 couples waiting to adopt that infant. We can get that line of people down from 1 million, 2 million to, I don't know, a couple 100,000 maybe. If adoption is supposed to give adopted people the best possible life they can experience, the qualifications for adoption shouldn't just be, hey, I'm rich enough to stand in line. And yes, gay people, black people, single people have historically been discriminated against by adoption agencies should be allowed to stand in that line if they would make better caretakers than other people. Okay, now we need to talk about why children actually become adoptable. Because newsflash, it's not straight people are abandoning their children left and right. For every infant that gets adopted in the US, adoption agencies will spend on average $10,000 to $20,000 of hopeful adopters' money on advertising. There is a massive baby shortage in the US, and these millions of dollars being spent on advertising are being spent trying to convince pregnant people to relinquish their children for adoption, because ultimately there aren't enough people, quote unquote, abandoning their children like this guy's saying. Not to mention that the number one reason why families relinquish their infants for adoption in the US has to do with finances, and the number one reason why children in this country end up in the foster care system has to do with neglect. Critics of the US child welfare system will be very quick to point out that neglect and poverty seem to have a lot in common. 3/4 of reports to CPS involve allegations of neglect. Neglect happens when a parent or caregiver does not provide food, clothing, shelter, medical care, or supervision to the degree that the child's health, safety, and well-being are threatened with harm. And yeah, if you can't afford food or clothing or housing or daycare, how are you going to not be guilty of this definition of neglect? And I hope you can tell where we're going by now, because adoption doesn't solve these problems. Adoption positions itself as a system of child welfare, when in reality, adoption looks at families who are poor or struggling, and instead of helping those families address their needs, extracts their children and says, here you go, we're solving your problems for you. So to bring it full circle,
we're stealing your kids from you. Sorry. That's literally what I'm hearing from this. Okay, so there's a little bit more to the video here, but I'm gonna pause it here so I can put in my thoughts for a second. And yeah, it's just this is literally explaining my biggest reason one issue why I have with what I have with the adoption system right now. And it is literally just it preys on people who aren't able to actually financially sustain themselves for their families or this or that, and it just really upsets me because if we didn't have the best case scenarios, we wouldn't have adoption. And in my opinion, I don't think the best case scenario is adoption is there's less adoption, and that's awesome, because that means that the children would be with their families and stuff like that, their biological families. And I'm not saying found family isn't good or anything like that, or whatever, or adopted families, but it's the adoption is really a like side product of an actual issue, and that issue should be addressed, of course. So anyways, I'm gonna continue the video.
The argument shouldn't be that gay people shouldn't adopt. The argument should be that no one should adopt. Adoption doesn't help anyone except the wealthy people who want to extract children from poor families. Adoption is America's cop-out, a reason for not providing social safety nets for families who need them. I don't know how any American progressive who considers themselves anti-colonialism can look at adoption and say that's something they want to do, when adoption is a hallmark example of exactly what colonialism looks like.
Gay people should.
Yeah, so that is the video. Honestly, the guy says it perfectly. But that's just yeah. So going back, I guess, with the first video and like me rambling for like, how long is this stream? 40 minutes. Oh my god. You can obviously tell that I am really struggling to coherently say anything. This is why I'm like, I can't make videos about like adoption or anything, because I would literally be rambling for like hours upon end. And I'm like, what? I don't even think I'm like that entertaining enough for people to continue to watch me. I mean, the 3 people are here. I really appreciate you. Also, hello Minty. We're talking about adoption and why I'm also like, I'm like, yes, I'm pro-adoption, but at the same time, I'm like, I don't like the systems that we have, and we need more safety nets for families, so we can prevent things like, we can prevent kids going into the adoption system. Like, I don't want kids to go into the adoption or foster care system. I want them to have, you know, homes that, in families who are able to take care of their kids, and not have to like literally do 2 million jobs just so they can survive, and then be considered neglectful because they can't be home all the time because they have to be at work. They have to pay for their bills. They have to pay for food, and it's very frustrating. It's a very frustrating thing. That's just in America, and I'm not even talking about like Chinese international adoption. But yeah, so those are the videos that I wanted to look over, and the previous video, the first video that I went over, and just the comments, the reply that I got is just, it's just audacious, and I can't even get into it, and I already tried talking about it earlier, and I'm just like, alright, I'm kind of done with that. But yeah, so that's really what I wanted to talk about. I know you guys are probably here just like, Lou, just keep drawing Hornet. Why do you keep yapping about adoption, bro? I'm sorry, guys. But yeah, I mean, if you guys have any, like, I mean, you guys are probably just here like just to hear me yap and stuff like that. I know normally I wouldn't just make a stream like this up and random, but I felt like I really needed to talk about this, because it's something that just like really deeply upsets me when it comes to like, because it's involving like people's lives and stuff, and then so I think one of my biggest grievances is just like, as an adoptee, our voices often get like overshadowed by non-adoptees and like people who are not in the adoptee community, and it's kind of like, it feels a little bit similar to like autistic people's plights too. Like, it's like, it's always like people who are not autistic, or the not autistic people in their lives who are trying to talk over, and that's just, and I think it's so important to see like adoptees talk more about like, it's awesome. It's more so, it's awesome to see adoptees talk about their experiences and stuff, and I love reading articles and biographies from adoptees, but it's unfortunate that like whenever adoptees do speak out about issues, it just doesn't get as much viewership compared to non-adoptees who are talking about it. So But yeah. And the one child policy in China and stuff like that, it deeply upsets me. I actually, funny thing, I was talking to my therapist the other day about when it comes to like why I'm so strongly like I feel such strong emotions when it comes to like feminine women, female characters, just anything relating to that is and it's because it feels I'm always like, well, it's the it's the amount for my background, I guess it's like the war trauma of um being a Chinese adoptee who's like AFAB, and then also knowing that it feel and I mentioned this earlier how there are some Chinese adoptees who feel like they have like survivor's guilt because of the fact that they weren't abandoned or aborted or literally killed. And I don't have a problem with the babies that were aborted, but at the same time it's upsetting because the only reason why they were aborted is because they were baby girls. And that's the sad part. It's not the abortion, it's that they were aborting baby girls, and it's because of the sex slash gender of the child rather than you know that they that it was like, oh, I'm aborting this child because I'm not ready or this or that or any other reason. And but the reason for it is because they people in China, uh they valued their boys more, they valued their males more. So, and that's just very upsetting. And it's for me, it's like, I mean, I put so much emphasis on my queer characters as well as um my ladies, my girlies, my but there's a big reason why I get so uppity about things like male bias when I talk about it in fandom and stuff like that. It's and OC spaces and things. Like it feels very like entrenched with who. Once again, it may be like the Survivor's Guild of like, oh my god, of coming from something that's been so like traumatic when it comes to like for like infanticide of like women, like girls and shit. Like I can't explain this well. Um my therapist was like, I got it. For a lot of people, I don't think they really get it. I always think about like I notice a lot of media that I consume is very women centered. It's like, for example, Apothecary Diaries, and Steven Universe. Steven Universe was the biggest one. As much as people talk about Steven Universe fan base being super toxic, um, the fan base, surprisingly very women centered. Like, I have never seen a fan base that solely focuses on their women, other than the Steven Universe fan base. And I mean, don't get me wrong, there are probably fan bases out there that solely focus on their women, but Steven Universe was genuinely that like breath of fresh air, and it really, in my opinion, it really did help me when it came to like um there for me, embracing my own femininity, embracing femininity and enjoying femininity once more. Actually was with Helena Adams, but Helena Adams and Identity 5. But I also enjoyed femininity that was in Steven Universe, as there were so many different characters that were like feminine characters. There was just such a wide range of characters when it came to Steven Universe, and it upsets me now, like in hindsight, how many people just tried like canceling the show because it's quote unquote woke, or this or that. And yes, it is woke. Who cares? Who cares? Like, I'm so glad I got something that was very, like, for women, if that makes sense. It's and I know it's like whatever. um but then I come back to, like, for example, I'm in the Silk Song fan base right now because, like, I like drawing the bugs, but notice how I've mainly only drawn, like, the non Horn and the non-binary characters, and also Chakra. You know what, I also drew Lace. You know what, I've only been drawing the women because the women and then one non-binary robot, and I guess I drew one gay, but I do need to draw a Phantom. I need to draw the other non-binary, and I think what I want to do is, like, I want to work on doing, like, drawings of all the ladies, all the girly pops, in the game. But yeah, okay. I'm getting sidetracked now because I'm thinking of, like, what I want to draw for fan art for Silk Song. Silk Song is interesting because it's a I've seen many different takes on it, but in my opinion, I think it's a very feminine game. Like, there's a lot of themes of femininity in Silk Song. And of course, okay, my computer looks like it's gonna want to die soon, so I might actually have to end the stream. But I'm gonna try and leave the stream with the wise words of Liu wisdom, I guess. When it comes to uh to Silk Song. My goodness, I can't think of anything that I want to say. Okay, so Silk Song. Back to Silk Song. My goodness. Um, I was wanting to say that's a very feminine game. There's a lot of amazing, like, women in this game and this and that. I know, like, people are like, but they're just bugs. Who cares? I love women. I don't even care if they're bugs. Um, I know right now the big drama right now is the wiki changing a lot of characters' pronouns from they them to gendered pronouns like she, her, he, him because of mistranslations um in different languages, and I'm like, that's probably not the best way to go at it at the wiki, but whatever. Okay, whatever, wiki guys, you guys are kind of weirdos for doing that. Whatever. I know right now people are really upset about, like, Phantom being gendered as she because of the Portuguese translation translating the character mention of as, like, sisters or something like that. Um I thought it was actually already in game, but I guess I was wrong and I'm an amoeba. But then later it was like, oh, the Phantom is they them non-binary. Let's go. And then I guess the wiki is like they're not non-binary anymore. I think my grievance will come when if the wiki ever changes Second Sentinel's gender to, like, he, him or something. I'd actually get genuinely so mad. I think I'd get so mad, and it wouldn't even be funny because it's like, I was complaining to my counselor about this, like, the Second Sentinel right now is my comfort character, so of course I'm gonna get really mad about some, like, a comfort character of mine. I'm also, like, a self-projector, so, like, who would have guessed I'm looking at a character and being like, oh, they them? They're so me for me, because I'm also them. But, I notice, a lot of people in the fan base gender Second Sentinel as he, and it frustrates me because, if there's a character that's, like, non-binary, and then there's, like, any remote, like, they just have, there's nothing that's, like, remotely feminine about them, or, indicator that people always consider that character as he. And I think I have some folks, when I read to on my Instagram, I have some trolls and friends of mine who reached out to me and were like, yeah, I hate this when it happens to my favorite character. Example, one of the biggest examples was Chris from Deltarune. I haven't played the latest chapters, but I know the fan base loves to misgender Chris as he, even though Chris, I think, is non-binary. And this is the same with Kara or Chara and Frisk, which I think people gender those characters as she. It's strange, guys. It's because I plug my computer and I set my PC probably at select and it's also because of Horn's feet. I'm drawing Horn's feet, and that's why my stream is lagging. So, and that's a shit PC. So, I need to get a new one. I know, but if I get a new, when I get a new one, I'll make sure my stream doesn't really work. I just know it's just crap because I have a PC that's like barely alive. I don't even know how it's living. I also think it's got multiple tabs open, so I'm gonna close a tab. Okay, there we go. It's probably tweaking because of that one tab too. It says it's skipping frames, so I think this is my sound in the stream that I continue having. You know, if I remember, I'll do another stream where I talk about like gender and characters and silk song, whatever. This is the stream that I want to talk about like Chinese adoption and stuff like that. And if I remember to add the videos, I'll try best. But if I don't, I will probably make sure I go in the community or something like I said. But